Hey everyone, my name is Oscar MoneyBall, and I'll be using my application to explain to you a little bit about what the Pep Guardiola zones are, build up and progression, and high XG zones through, again, this application that I built just to teach either whether you're a coach or you're a player that's starting to get into more advanced metrics. It's really important that we start introducing these type of concepts, these data-driven concepts to propel us forward. So looking forward to creating more content like this. Hopefully as this progresses, I'll be able to kind of tailor this type of content more specific to positions, different types of situations, whether you're building up, attacking in the final third, etc., and just overall just data-driven concepts to help us all propel ourselves forward in our education. So without further ado, let's just see how this turns out. I'm gonna move this out of the way. Actually, I'm going to perfect. Okay, so we're good. Sorry about that. So in this this first part of the video, as you can see here, we have a home team and the ball that's gonna kind of get us started. We have different zones, so let's introduce the Pep Guardiola zones. So here we have a lot of lines, a lot of colors, and a lot of different things going on. So one of the things that Pep Guardiola has introduced into the modern soccer game is putting layers and zones into the field. So this would be the half spaces right here, this area right here where the 8 and the 10 is. The center zone is occupied here in the center circle all the way through box to box. So this is where you get your term box to box midfielder, because you have players that are doing these types of coverages, such as your 10s and 8s. And then you have your outside channels, so where you have your 3s, your 7s, your 11s, and your number 2s. And then ideally your 4s and 5s are in covering sort of in the center zone, but also overlapping that half space. Then here in the center zone you have your 6s, which are very crucial in your plays, and your center striker. So this allows you to kind of maximize width and depth. So as you progress forward into the opposition's half, this is sort of what it will look like. So you have your 7, 9, and 11 push up as close as you can to the team's lower block. And then you have the 8s and 10s occupying these half spaces. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to widen up the defensive line. And I'll show what that looks like in just a bit. So as we push it forward, you kind of have this situation going on where you go from the most popular position formation is a 4-3-3 to a 2-3-2-3 or 2-3-5, because sometimes this could look like this, right? So once we're in the final third, we're in the opposition's half. This is what it should look like. It should be a 2-3-5 or 2-3-2-3, with the 8s and 10s being very crucial in this movement. Let's put in the away team so we can see what this would look like. So your keeper would obviously be there. Your back line is sort of doing this, and you'll see why these half spaces are very crucial. Maybe you're already seeing it now. Come on. Okay, so both of these teams, the yellow and the blue, are both playing a 4-3-3, but this is why it's so crucial. So one of the most important things to know as a player, especially when you're playing in the final third or in the opposition's half, is that you want to be between the lines. So in this case, the offensive team is the blue team. So I want to position my 8s and my 10s between my 7 and 11. So 7, 10, 9, maybe the 9 provides depth. So this guy would be playing the limit right here, right on the defensive line. So your 7, your 10, your 8, and your 11 are all playing between lines. So between the defensive line and the midfield line of the opposing team is where you want to position these players. You create a numerical advantage. So when there's 4 players in between this line and there's only 3 opposition players, you're automatically creating a numerical advantage in these spaces. What it also, another important thing is that when the 8s and the 10s are occupying these half spaces, it becomes a lot more difficult for your, let's go from top to bottom, for your 2 and your 4 to defend, because your 2 has no idea, depending on where the ball is. If the ball moves here, your 2 has to kind of mark number 7 and number 10 at the same time. So there's this guessing game where if these guys don't communicate, if the yellow team does not communicate, there's some opportunities there. So if number 2 tries to predict this pass to number 7, this gap widens up where number 10 can pick up a pass here, right? But number 8, there's a lot of game theory here where you can make these types of 1, 2, 3 passes, right? There's a lot of things going on here. So what you want to do is you want to always have a numerical advantage. Whether you're defending or you're attacking, you want to have a numerical advantage. That's so important. If you're attacking, you want to be in between players. So you see how I'm positioning my 10, my 7, my 10, my 9, 8, and 11 in spaces where we're spreading that defensive line as wide as possible. So if you play any of these positions, it's super important that you check your shoulders and you see where you're standing. I mean, this wouldn't be a bad situation because then it isolates number 10. If 9 goes man to man, but then you would have to bring this guy into this half space, but then it makes it easier. So everyone has to shift in a position here, and then create space for number 2 to kind of take this outside channel. Again, all game theory. It's all game theory. It's kind of how you move these people. That's why I said it could be a 2, 3, 5. You see how now we're playing really, really deep, and these players have to either come in these positions. So there's a numerical advantage. Super important. I can move these players all day long. So we go back to where we were. That's one thing to think about when you're attacking is depth. So from the left to right, that's depth, and top to bottom in this scenario is width. We want to spread, again, these lines up as much as possible. We want to create numerical advantages in between the defensive and the midfield line, and then the same numerical advantage between the offense and the midfield line. So what that would look like would be your 8s and your 10s occupying these spaces here, where we have numerical advantages in between these lines for passes to be played through. So in this situation, let's just say fullback number 3 is coming out with the ball. Number 9 would close in. Number 7 would take this center zone. So we have 3 against 2. Our 5 creates a 3v3. The numerical advantage would be someone between this line right there to build the pass there. Now obviously this player would be man marked, but number 7 has to also position himself in between lines. So you see that there's this gap between the 11 and the 8. If number 10 is not an option, number 2 is an option. Now number 7 is an option. If number 2 steps up, do you see this huge gap that we now leave? Number 4 has to cover that, because the thing that the striker would do is just, you want to have these strikers playing here. Once your striker plays out of position, I mean, you can do that, that's not a problem, but then that introduces my next theory, which is high expected goal zones, XG. So here we introduce these heat maps where the red areas are super high XG zones, where you create high value, high quality chances, high valued shots that are most likely to convert into goals. Think about this as if we talk NBA terms, basketball terms, a layup is much easier to score than a 3-pointer or anything within a 2-point range. So you ideally want to get in the paint, right? As the NBA calls it, you want to have shots. You want to have your number 9 be in these situations where they're taking shots here. Now, if we start to move the angle and position this number 9 out here, it's not in a high XG zone, especially with this angle here. It's super tight. The more we are closer to the center circle of the PK spot or in the 6-yard box, we're going to be taking high value shots that are most likely to convert into goals, and that's the whole concept of XG. XG is not a tell-all. It's just a tool to help us determine whether we're taking high value shots. And as a striker, we have to be in these zones. So I mean, although your 9s can play out here, can make these runs, as I was talking about earlier, if your number 2 pushes up and starts to leave this gap open, of course we can have a ball played in this area where your 9 can break through. Basically, we have to penetrate, right? We have to penetrate the defensive line, and that takes me to this next concept. I'm going to eliminate the Pep G zones, keep the XG heat map, zoom out a bit so I can introduce build-up zones. So in the different phases of the game, you have where you build, progress, penetrate, and finish. Excuse me. So once we've penetrated the defensive line in this zone, now these zones, I put them in color, they're kind of color coordinated. Excuse me. But these zones shift in between the gaps of the offensive, midfield, and defensive line. So your penetrate zone would be in this zone right here. It's not shown correctly because I've tilted my yellow team back a bit, but the whole point of it is you need to penetrate in the zone between the midfield and the defensive line, where your 7s, your 8s, 10s, 9s, and 11s are making runs in between these gaps and getting into high XG zones. And getting into finishing areas. So one thing, if this kind of shatters your glass, is you'll kind of see now where there's a lot of teams crashing the goal with a high number of players inside the box, kind of closing in the 6-yard box here and improving their chances. So what you want to do, and that kind of creates the cutback. The cutback goal is one of the most effective ways to get a shot on target. It's one of the most effective ways to score goals, and you see that through, teams like Man City, Arsenal, Bayern. A lot of these teams that are really, really tactically strong is because they're putting numbers in these high XG zones in the finish area, and you have a lot of players crashing the goal. So again, your formation is a 2, 3, 5. You potentially have these types of runs. Once it gets into the final third, you're just optimizing numbers into that, and so one of these players will get the ball and be able to take a positive shot on target, and that's what you want. So what a cutback goal would look like is where you maximize the depth. And do you guys remember like playing FIFA and you're on a 1v1 situation versus a goalie, and you have that second striker running up, and so you just pass it off to the side and there's an open shot to goal? That's what you want to create. You want to create these opportunities where your probability of scoring increases. If you're in a 1v1 situation with the goalie, for example, I'm gonna move the yellow team to create this 1v1 situation on the opposite side of the field, where number 7 is having a 1v1 against the blue goalkeeper. Your probabilities of this are very high, but how do you make it even higher? If the keeper is closing in the angle for number 7's shot, but out of nowhere, number 9 is creeping up and following up this run, as long as he stays on sides, this pass right here and this shot with the keeper being completely eliminated is a really high probability of it going in. Yeah, it could go out of bounds, it can go over, it can go wherever, but there's a higher chance that this goes in than this shot going in where the keeper is now blocking all of the angles. So how does this translate into a cutback goal? Same thing here. This player, it could be your fullback, it could be your winger, would then give a pass that penetrates through into these high XG zones, and now all of these players can take a shot on goal, can kind of keep a possession game within this 18-yard box, and just get a high value worth of a shot into or onto the goal, shot on target. Now, if you're the team that's defending here, you'll see another concept that gets introduced into soccer is When the opposition is going all attack, they're creating a lot of space here for the yellow team to take advantage of. The more space between the defensive line, between your 5s and your 4s of the blue team and the goalkeeper, the more room and easier it is for your number 9s, your 11 and your 7 to penetrate as they're playing between the lines here. They're playing between the 5 and the 4. You have your striker taking the center zone. So we're going to eliminate in this situation the progress, penetration, and finish zones and go back to our Pep Guardiola zones. So we have an outside channel being taken, center zone, half space, and this player can play either half space or the outside channel. If the defensive team, the yellow team, is able to win back possession and play a quick enough through ball in between the lines here, you have a lot of space and you're outnumbering the opponent here. 3 against 2. 3 yellows against 2 blues. It's a lot of game theory. Here where we introduce now a sweeper keeper, where if there's a deep ball being played, your keeper has to have the ability to come out and sweep these balls out of play and occupy the zones here that are being left, the gaps that are being left by your 5 and your 4, your 2 center backs. One thing too to defend counters, if you're the blue team, is that instead of having your 2 center backs that are completely outnumbered, either doing this with the ball, shifting completely from side to side, the smartest thing to do is, again, look at your high XG zones. So it's more important for us to eliminate the space here between the keeper and the goalie. Between the goalie and the defensive line. It's much easier for my center backs to do this than it is for them to shift and completely give this scenario where your 9s crash here, your 7 crashes here, and this 1v1 situation turns into a 2v1 over here. So it's much easier for, again, your center backs to eliminate the space between the keeper and their backs, shortening that gap, allowing for time, allowing for your 3 to do this. Enough time. That's all you need. It's just soccer is sort of this. A counter attack is a game of chicken. You've ever played chicken where the first one to commit loses? That's basically what a counter attack is. You commit, you lose. You have to just play and shorten the space and give yourself some time for these numbers to come through. Now, yes, as your 3, your 6s, and your 2s come back and do this coverage, obviously your 8s and your 6s and your 10s from the opposing team are also going to build up. Everyone transitions. Everyone transitions. Everyone transitions backwards. Jesus. Sorry. A lot of clicking here. And then it becomes this back and forth game. So, give me a second so I can introduce this next concept. So, soccer. So, soccer, football, however you guys want to call it, depending on whatever country you're in. I'm tailoring my content to be driven to players that are developing in the United States. So soccer, in this case soccer, there's 4 phases in the game. Either you're attacking or you're defending, right? And that's a lot of time that's spent. A lot of coaches spend time on either just attacking and defending, but we're forgetting about the 2 other most crucial components of the game, phases of the game, which is transitioning from attacking to defense. The transition from attacking to defense here, it's crucial. Your transition from your defense to offense is crucial. So in this situation that I just gave you guys, we had the yellow team defending and then transitioning into a counter attack, and the entire team had to go. It can't just be the top 3 players. What I mean by the top 3 players is your striker, your wingers, all going forward, or just 2 players or just 1 player. That's a really bad counterattack. Your team needs to be ready to counterattack as a team, to transition from defense to offense as quick as possible. All 11 players, including your keeper. Again, shortening the space between the keeper and the defensive line, shortening the space between the defensive line and the midfield, and shortening the space between the midfield and the offense. And that game has to be played back and forth, back and forth. The moment there's any discrepancy between your defensive line and your midfield line, boom, right? There's this long stretch of yards, meters, where you can allow players to play in the opposing players to take those zones, those spaces, those pockets of space. You're gonna create a lot of it's gonna create a lot of hardship for you. And so if you're a player that's playing soccer, that's playing football, and you're attacking or transitioning from defense to attacking, you need to find that space. You need to be aware of that space. You need to occupy those pockets. You need to be in those positions where you're creating a numerical advantage so your team can penetrate through and progress and build up, etc., and get into the finish zones. It's a lot of game theory, but it's at the same time, it's very simple. It's almost robotic. It's almost very, very robotic. And that's one of the things where there's a lot of controversy there, because we're creating robotic players but that's game theory. It's sort of like baseball. Baseball is in this state where it's so advanced, it's so quantified, there's so much data behind it that it's so easy for you to know, okay, if player does B or if player A does this, then do this. There's a solution to everything, and that's sort of where soccer is transitioning to. It's transitioning into this sport where it's a game of chicken. It's a game of game theory. It's chess. It's moving players. It's depth, width.
I found some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your iPhone.
Sorry, excuse that. That's Siri there, but again, it's a game theory. There's a lot of alternative ways to break through the opponent. This video could be very long, but I mean, I could stretch this out for and I can make content out of this, So I'll leave it here. We'll use this video as sort of what initiates this tactical universe that Oscar MoneyBall, that myself I'm creating to educate a lot of the youth into developing as better players. So if your goal is to play high level soccer, then it's very important that you understand these types of concepts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I also make videos where I use data-driven analysis to predict the MLS, the English Premier League, which is currently off season, the Liga MX, Those are my top 3 favorite leagues to watch at the moment. Potentially more as I create a better system for all of this. So thank you guys so much for watching. Click the links in the description to my website as I sell soccer cards. There's stuff on my shop, but all this educational content will be for free. Enjoy your weekend or enjoy your day. This is being recorded on a Friday. Peace.